fellow and Israeli writer Chen Mazig. And Chen, obviously there is tremendous suffering in Gaza right now. There's no denying it, and we are seeing the images of it. There's a flood of the content coming in online. You are watching social media all the time, and you caution that two things can be true at the same time. We talk about this. You can know that there's real suffering and have incredible empathy and demand a change, and also know that there is viral disinformation out there. What are you seeing in the landscape?
Yeah, I spend hours speaking to Gazans, both inside Gaza and outside, and listening to their stories and the pain that they're going through. And there is starvation. People are starving, and we need to recognize it. But I've spent my life fighting for peace, first as an Israeli and now just as an online digital activist, someone that cares about it. And peace is not a hashtag for me. It's my life's mission. So when I hear those stories, I just always think of how we can achieve peace and how we can end the suffering, while so many voices online, if celebrities, an example, I saw that Ariana Grande and others decided to speak up about this conflict, people that haven't said a word about the October 7th massacre or about the hostages, they're just using it as a political tool to get some likes and clicks. And it's very disheartening for me. It's disheartening to find more in common with Gazans than with left-wing activists that claim to speak for them.
Yeah, and you could imagine that there is something compelling about posting about this after you see the images that are circulating online. And you yourself have pointed out that some of those images may not be exactly what they are billed as. What instances have you seen that have concerned you most?
Yeah, we've seen only the last few days images of Palestinian children, Gazans that have different sorts of disease that change their body composition and make them not able to eat. One of those images ended up on the cover of an Italian newspaper that claimed that it was from today and that this child in Gaza was starving. The truth was that this kid was actually transferred by Israel into Italy to receive medical aid and is actually much better now. But this old image was used to trigger emotional response. We need to ask ourselves, why do we being manipulated this way? And if you feel something so strongly, someone is benefiting from it. And I think we all have to be much more careful when we engage with media, with content that is making us feel something. If you looked at the New York Times cover just a couple of days ago was another picture of a Palestinian child that his mother is looking perfectly healthy and his brother is healthy, but the child has another disease that affects his body. All of this not to say that there's no real starvation and real people that need aid, but why are we using this fabricated stories to create some emotional reaction from people around the world? Why can't we just speak about it in a truthful way, in a way that will help both Israelis and Palestinians rather than dividing us?
We know that Hamas is a U.S. designated State Department terrorist organization, and the information coming out of the enclave can be compromised. But we also know that Western journalists have not been allowed inside of Gaza to tell the story straight from the scene. How do you think that affects how the information is getting out about this conflict?
That's a severe mistake in my eyes of the Israeli government to not allow journalists into the Gaza Strip. I understand the rationale behind it and the statement that we've heard from the Israeli government and officials that I've spoken with, that this is a way to protect journalists' lives and to protect them from being kidnapped by Hamas, and that even if they would be allowed in, they wouldn't be allowed to report things truthfully. I think it's a shortcoming of the Israeli government, and I think international journalists should be allowed to cover the story in the Gaza Strip. The problem is that Hamas is using propaganda and PR war as its strongest weapon, and that's why they're deciding what footage would come out of the Gaza Strip and what footage and what information would be reported by the international media. And I don't blame the international media for citing Hamas's numbers and Hamas's information. That's the only information we have. So I hope that Israel would reconsider that.
Trump himself, I'm sure you saw this, Chen, Trump himself had referenced the images that he's seeing out of Gaza, and he actually seemed to spread some daylight between himself and his stance and Bibi Netanyahu. So what do you make of what we're seeing in the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu here?
Yeah, I think it's just another crack in their relationship. But we've seen it for a long time. I think that while I hold Hamas accountable for the prolonging of this war, not just me. I mean, I'm looking at the former Secretary of State Blinken saying that whenever the world turned against Israel, Hamas became more emboldened to not make concessions and not agree to any ceasefire deals. And the same thing that Witkoff just said last week, the U.S. envoy to the crisis in Gaza, mentioned that it was Hamas that refused the negotiations. I still think that the Israeli government, specifically Netanyahu, is trying to appease radical parts of his party, ministers that don't belong in the Israeli government, in my opinion. And with all that being said, joining to the UK statement of recognizing Palestine if Israel would not make changes, as if it's a punishment. I mean, this messaging, this whole political theater that we're seeing on our news feed and online and in the media is not serving Israelis or Palestinians. The Gazans I speak with, they oppose Hamas, they want this war to end, and they want the international media and the world to hold Hamas accountable to end this war. And that's my deepest hope, and it's my prayer that both Israelis and Palestinians will be able to live in peace and security, and that future cannot include Hamas.
Let's just hope that we see an end to the suffering and hopefully a peaceful solution sometime soon. Chen Mazzig, thank you so much.